Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Definitely.
So it's this English learning podcast called Daily Money Briefing.
Huh. Interesting. Okay.
It's actually pretty cool. You get the
Yeah.
financial news and kind of a language lesson all in one.
Oh, I like that. Sort of killing two birds with one stone.
Exactly. Today we're digging into the South Korean economy. It's a fascinating, really intricate picture right now. We've got reports here covering, well, everything from high-level geopolitics and, corporate results, right down to how regular households are managing their finances. Our goal for you today, to sort of unpack these different threads and show you how they connect, revealing the story of this. Okay, well, let's get into it. We should probably start with the geopolitical side. Recent comments from U.S. President Donald Trump have definitely stirred things up again. He called South Korea a wealthy nation, contributing far too little, his words, to the cost of keeping U.S. troops there. That's pretty direct language. It implies, renewed pressure for Seoul to pay significantly more.
Yeah. And what's really interesting, I think, is the timing of all this. See, final trade talks are happening right now between the U.S. and South Korea, and there's a big deadline coming up.
The tariff freeze.
Exactly. That mutual tariff freeze expires August 1st. Basically, means neither side is putting new import taxes on the other for now. These comments from Trump, they're probably less about defense costs today and more about, well, boosting America's leverage in those trade negotiations.
Using one issue to gain ground on another. Classic diplomacy.
Pretty much, yeah. It's a standard playbook move.
Okay, and it's fascinating how those sort of global pressures can link up with what's happening inside major companies.
Mm-hmm.
Which brings us to Samsung. Samsung Electronics just released Q2 results that were, well, much weaker than expected. A real earnings shock, people are calling it, their operating profit. 4.6 trillion Korean won. That's down almost 56% from last year.
Wow, 56%.
Yeah, and here's the really interesting bit.
Yeah.
It's the first time in 6 quarters their quarterly profit dipped below the 5 trillion won mark.
Mm-hmm.
What's behind a plunge like that?
Well, if you connect the dots based on the reports, it looks like a few things coming together. There's weaker global demand, especially for semiconductors. That's, a huge part of Samsung's business.
Right.
Then they mentioned these inventory-related provisions. Essentially, that means they had to account for having too much unsold stock piling up. Costly stuff.
Okay.
And of course, you can't ignore the ongoing U.S. export controls on AI chips going to China. That really messes with their global sales strategy. So it's not just like one bad quarter. It really points to bigger shifts in the tech market, forcing companies like Samsung to rethink things, maybe look beyond their usual markets.
And it seems this cautious mood isn't just hitting the big corporations. It seems to be trickling down to ordinary households, too. We saw this really interesting paradox in the first quarter of this year. Korean households, their income actually went up.
Yeah.
Bonuses, seasonal payouts, that sort of thing. But, and this is the key part, they didn't spend it. They cut back on consumption.
Cut back, even with more money coming in.
Exactly. And it pushed surplus household funds, basically leftover cash, to a record high. 92.9 trillion won in Q1. That's huge. Like 2 or 3 times the previous quarter.
That's a staggering figure. So where did all that extra cash go, if not spending? Well, most of it went into pretty safe places, bank deposits mainly, some into stocks, both domestic and overseas.
So saving, not spending.
Right, and economists are reading that as a clear signal of, well, caution, maybe even worry about what's coming next economically. It suggests that even though people had more income, they're anticipating tougher times maybe, so they're choosing to save up, brace themselves. It says a lot about public confidence.
So pulling it all together, what does this tapestry look like for South Korea right now? You've got this external pressure geopolitically from the U.S. You have internal struggles with a giant like Samsung facing headwinds. And then you have consumers, ordinary people, becoming much more cautious, saving record amounts. It really does paint a complex and pretty intriguing picture of their economic landscape.
It absolutely does. And seeing how these different stories, geopolitics, corporate health, consumer behavior interact is, I think, crucial. So maybe the final thought for you, the listener, to mull over is this. How do these internal shifts, the cautious consumers and struggling corporations, combine with those external pressures? How does all that together really shape the resilience and, I suppose, the future path of a globally connected economy like South Korea's? It's a challenge with many, many layers. We hope this was a useful shortcut to getting informed.
They're something to think about.